Before the break, we asked how many English students study in Wales, and the answer is 24,000.
Let's get on with tuition fees, another subject that apparently the government has no idea about either. Does anyone watching today agree with the Daily Mail and feel a sense of outrage at the latest ruling from the Welsh Assembly? Because last night, Lowry Turner's brothers and sisters voted to subsidise the university tuition fees of Welsh students. It works like this. Welsh undergrads will pay the current £3,000 and a bit a year tuition fees whether they study at home or at an English university. Scottish students don't have to pay a penny in fees so long as they stay studying north of the border, but English undergrads are going to have to pay up to £9,000 a year to study at an English university, a Welsh university or a Scottish university. And the Welsh Assembly is going to fund its tuition fees subsidy by finding cuts elsewhere, but the Daily Mail explains that the Assembly also has more than £1,000 per person to spend than they have in Westminster, due to the way that we fund the Welsh Assembly and Scottish Parliament. It's educational apartheid, the paper thunders, but is it? I didn't hear the Daily Mail arguing for Scotland to be given all the money that came from North Sea oil back, or all the profits from the sale of leeks, lamb and male voice choirs to be returned to Lowry land. The Welsh voted for a Labour Plaid Cymru coalition, and they get... Cymru, sorry. Subsidised tuition fees. We voted for a Tory-led coalition, and the Tories never made any secret of the fact tuition fees would probably rise. And the Daily Mail likes the Tories, so they can't complain, can they? I love Wales, I love the rivers, I love Lowry, Charlotte Church, Tom Jones, Richard Burton, though I could live without Gavin Hansen. The Welsh Assembly has given its people free prescriptions as well, so Lowry, maybe Claire, Cameron and Cable should look west for inspiration.
Absolutely, I think they should look west for inspiration. I mean, I'm depressed by this news because I think, why aren't I living in Wales? Because we'll all move to Wales now.
There's a lot of people that are watching at home that's probably going to say the same thing.
Because, you know, I mean, that's 30k for each kid, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I've got 3 of those, so,
yeah.
you know...
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. And, of course, the big question is, if they can do it, why can't England do it?
Well, here's another twist, right? A European... right, students, so someone from Spain, they can study in Wales and only pay £3,000, OK? But an English student can't, and we've been pestering the Welsh Assembly to explain, and they just said you've got to speak to Europe, which is an absolute waste of time, because nobody speaks English in Europe and you can't understand what they're going on about. But there's this weird discrepancy that European, EU students pay the reduced rate, but English students, and we are part of the EU, don't.
I think the most unfair thing is that actually England wasn't given the chance to... for self-government. Wales was,
yes.
Scotland was. So actually, the voters in England don't have the same opportunity. And
but the vast majority of MPs in Parliament are English MPs. They represent England.
Yes, they will, because there's a Welsh Assembly,
yeah.
Absolutely. But the fact is that it seems unfair that Wales would be given this absolute advantage, and if I was in Wales, I'd be cheering to the rooftops for this, and English students aren't, and there's no way to sell that as being democratic. It's just simply unfair.
Is it? I think it is democratic, Dave, because we voted, by and large, for a coalition and...
I agree. I mean, I think the tuition fees is ridiculous. I think it's a system where we've come to see education as only a means to an end, and it's only about getting a job and therefore making money, whereas actually education is about broadening the mind and becoming a better human and being a better functioning part of society.
Yes.
And if we stop valuing that and see it purely as, well, of course you can afford to get 27 grand because you're now equipped to go and get a better job, then we'll lose the arts and all sorts of things, which are utterly ridiculous. And if we learn from this and we look across the border and think, God, that other country there, they're doing a bit better than us, then maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, do you tempted to go to Wales?
Why do we have... Yeah, but also...
You're going to ask me complicated questions, go on then.
No, but why do we have to pay so much money to get a good education? Why, you know...
Well, I would suggest the problem is Tony Blair decided to expand university education, so tens of thousands of people who would otherwise possibly gone and got jobs decide instead they'll go off to university and have 3 years of sex, drugs and rock and roll or whatever it is undergraduates do. And because of the swelling of the university ranks, it's become an unbearable expense on the country. So if I was running the country, I would close down some universities. I would make university more elite and try and cut the costs that way.
But this makes it more elite in a different way. This makes it more elite in a way that only rich people can afford to go to university.
Yes, and that's the wrong way. I want an academic elite rather than a financial elite.
You know, so many of I went to drama college and you know, £9,000 a year to go to drama college. you know, I got a grant for the first 2 years, which was fantastic. I was very lucky. And for the third year, my parents paid. But for the majority of my friends and people I know in this industry...
They don't earn the money, do they?
They don't have the money to go and pursue their dreams. So what do? You know, they end up a very talented person who doesn't get the jobs because, you know, they can't afford to have an education.
Or massively in debt.
Yeah. And that's, you know, so many people I know as well are, like, hundreds and thousands of pounds in debt.
Do you think that English students are victims here, or that Welsh students are just very lucky?
Both. I don't see why in England we should be paying £9,000 a year. I don't see why we should be paying £3,000 a year. If you want an education, you really want to work hard, and, OK, granted, a lot of people, like you said, they go to university to doss around and do nothing. But there are a big percentage of people who really do.
I'm disingenuous. You can do sex, drugs, rock and roll and still work really hard.
Of course you can.
Are there going to be people now... You know the way that people now... House prices reflect how good the schools are in Britain generally? Are you going to have house prices in Wales going up? Because people in Shrewsbury are thinking, we might pop over the border when they're 15 and sort of...
You could move to Wales, live there for 3 years and then qualify, I believe. Yeah, there you go, Larry, you're interested. Let's go to the phones. Find out what you make of this extraordinary decision. I think a wonderful decision by the Welsh Assembly. Kirsty.
Yep, we do actually have someone from the Welsh Assembly on the phone, and it's Nerys on line 3.
Nerys, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Well, I have to say congratulations, first of all, because... I think you've done the right thing by your voters, but it is a bit mean on English students, isn't it?
Well, we believe we're doing the right thing. I'm Plaid Cymru's education spokesperson in the Assembly. We're in coalition with the Labour Party here.
That's right.
And it's about priorities. You know, Labour and Plaid in Wales prioritise students. We don't want to be saddling our young people with debts of up to £30,000 just to get a degree. It's up to the UK government to decide to do the same for English students. It's a priority here in Wales. It's not for the Tories and the Lib Dems in England.
No, how does it work out that a prospective undergraduate from Madrid, say Spain, pays the reduced rate, but somebody from Birmingham can't?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
How come that foreign students within the EU, so somebody who comes from Spain, will be able to pay the reduced rate, £3,000 and a bit a year, but someone who comes from Birmingham can't?
That's down to European regulations. We've got to treat European students as well as our own.
But England is part of Europe, aren't we?
But we can differentiate between the member states.
But England is part of Europe. We're part of the UK. We're part of Europe.
The European rules, I don't make them up. We've got indications from Europe that we can treat the member state differently, but we've got to treat European students as well as our own. But the issue here is England and the UK government need to prioritise English students. You know, and all this, you know, it's great to see the London media finally paying attention to stuff that's happening in Wales. We are doing things differently. It's called devolution. It's a pity that it's so negative.
Nerys.
Education apartheid. It's ridiculous.
OK,
go on, I have to say, obviously, you know, I'm Welsh, fantastic, wonderful, but the argument would also be, from a lot of disgruntled people in England, that the only way you can do this is because of the huge subsidy you receive effectively from the British taxpayer's pocket. What do you say to that?
That's absolutely ridiculous. We pay taxes here in Wales too, and actually all the parties in Wales, including the Conservatives, are accepting that we're being underfunded in Wales. We're not being subsidised. We're getting a funded formula based on our population and not
the Barnett formula. Nerys,
absolutely ridiculous.
I say again, I salute what you've done, and I think Westminster should look and learn. Thank you for the call. Let's have another.
OK, next we have Matthew on line 1.
Matthew, good morning.
Good morning, Matthew. How are you doing?
I'm OK. Matthew, are you? Do you think that are you English?
I'm Welsh. I just sound a bit English, so I lived across the border for a while.
OK. You come over here, you take English jobs. No.
I thought you'd say that.
Is it fair?
I think overall, I think that it should be means tested, because you know if you come from say rural Wales and you're really intelligent, you've got all the skills you would want, and an English university wants to snap you up. You've got a lot of extra expense to move to a big English city because of house prices, rent, accommodation, and everything like that. So I think, you know, if an English student wants to come into Wales, again, it should be means tested. If they haven't got much money but, you know, they're going to be great at university and not drop out. We should welcome,
Matthew,
them in with the same amount of money.
I would have to assume that, as Vince Cable is always at pains to speak out, his bill that he may not vote for, his bill does make provision for the poorest students in the land to receive subsidies. So that I would assume that the poorest in the land, no matter where they live...
So then you're going to get very poor students or very rich students, and everybody else in the middle won't be able to afford to go.
That's true. Yeah. Matthew, thank you very much for the call and the good humour. Let's have another.
OK, we have Trish next on line 4.
Trish, good morning.
Good morning.
Is this fair, whatever we're...
No.
Which
we're
bit?
all part of the UK.
Right.
I've just finished university this June. I'm 57 and I decided to do it.
Good for you.
I think this is actually knocking out... we've just brought in an ageist law coming in next year, but actually it's knocking out older students. It's knocking out all sorts of people. My thought would be is everybody should apply to Welsh or Scottish universities and move there. Perhaps the English government would then notice.
Well, that's my view, would be that the English government needs to wake up. It's not that the Welsh are behaving unfairly, it's that the UK government in Westminster is behaving unfairly.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things where people pay different council tax in different parts of the country, and we don't go, oh, it's not fair, the people in Buckinghamshire aren't paying as much as me. You accept that things are different in different parts of the country, and if Wales has a different government and they do a different thing, well done them.
OK. Thank you, Trish. Let's have another.
OK, we have Jason next on line 2.
Jason, good morning.
Good morning, Matthew. Good morning.
So what's your take on events, then?
You know, in the famous last words of George Osborne, we are all in this together, aren't we?
Oh, shut up!
We're all part of the United Kingdom. I think
that would be the multi-millionaire George Osborne. I just wanted to check, yeah?
What would be great is if they were his last words.
Go on, Jason, what were you going to say?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that the Labour coalition in Wales is offering free student places to the kids in Wales. I mean, the funding has to come from somewhere.
Well, it does. Now, they're cutting the grants they make to teacher training at university level. So they're making cuts from there. So they are robbing Peter to pay Paul, which is how government works.
In that case, it's not surprising. There were 17 spelling mistakes in their letter earlier on as they're cutting teacher training. It's crazy.
maybe things will improve.
At the end of the day, Labour introduced this when there was no economic crisis worldwide. The Labour government were telling the public that Britain's economy was doing better than anywhere else in the world. And there was no tuition fees at all. The state funded all the education for the whole of the United Kingdom, not just Wales and Scotland. And yet now, Labour are offering it free to Welsh students, but not the English. I think that's just crazy.
Yeah, well, of course, times were good, weren't they? Because people like Tony Blair... Labour Prime Minister, he ended up with 5 houses as a result of the boom years of Labour, and presumably you and everybody else ended up with 5 houses as well. And when he was interviewed by Andrew Marr about the 5 houses, Tony offered the righteous socialist excuse that he has to look after his children, of which I believe there are, 3, 4? 4 children, 5 houses. So it's a little bit beyond a house per child, isn't it, Jason?
I'd quite like to have that socialist principle for my own children.
Really? How many houses have you got?
I've only got 1 at the moment, quite a small one, but I'd quite like to have 1 for each of them, you know. How can that be arranged?
Move to Wales.
Move to Wales. Would you be tempted, Larry?
I am quite tempted, but I don't think my kids will want to go. I mean, it'd be OK, but if you've got 3 years, that means you've got to do between 15 and 18. 15 is precisely the point when they want to go to nightclubs. Can you imagine if I said to my children, we're actually leaving London and we're going to live in Montgomery?
You would let your children go to nightclubs at 15?
Oh, well, they will.
Social services! Social services! Bad, Mum! Bad, Mum!
How Welsh do you have to be? Is it like footballers, where they can sort of claim the granddad was Welsh and it's OK? Because I'm called David and I was born the day before St David's Day, so I think I'm honourably a Welsh person.
Welsh-born and domiciled there at the time of application, I believe. I may be getting this wrong. Or have lived there for 3 years and then apply. So be domiciled at the time. Yeah, fascinating times. And I can't wait to see what happens to the Lib Dems. I really can't.